Morning, everyone. I'll start with Iran and end with Iran, and both with different conservative leaders. In this instance, Andrew Scheer, and we'll finish on Stephen Harper. And then we're gonna do a bit of international news, and then I've been ignoring Canadian news just because Iran has sucked up all the air, and I've only been doing one video a day, and I apologize about that. But like I said, I've got lots to do. So here we go. Andrew Scheer's tweeting, and this is 18 hours ago, and today is January 15th, so that makes when his tweets were sent out January 14th. And he says, quote, "Last week, the Iranian regime shot down Flight 752. 57 Canadians lost their lives, and their friends and families woke up with the realization that they would never speak to their loved ones again. Canadians are grieving with them. I would like to thank the Prime Minister for briefing me on the situation. We must always remember the Iranian regime's actions that led to this horrible atrocity. Canada's Conservatives call on the Trudeau Liberals to take the following measures. 1. Immediately implement the Conservative motion passed by Parliament in 2018 to list Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. 2. Demand Iran compensate all victims of the crash, repatriate their remains, and hold the perpetrators of this atrocity accountable. 3. Be prepared to impose magnitsky sanctions on Iran if they don't fully cooperate with the international investigation. The actions listed above are a measured and appropriate response to ensure that the families of the victims receive answers. Immediate action is necessary. The Iranian regime cannot get a free pass after killing 57 Canadians. The blame for this horrible atrocity lies with the Iranian regime alone. Canada's Conservatives will continue to advocate for an appropriate and measured response to ensure Iran is held accountable and the families of the victims receive the justice they deserve." Wow, I didn't see any of blame Trump. And, you know, if Trump hadn't have been Trump, this never would have happened. This whole statement reads like a mature response to an international incident that occurred the other week. So good job, Mr. Scheer. Interesting stuff, really. In France, doctors are ceremoniously tossing their coats and stethoscopes to the ground and quitting because the government, because they're on strike and because they want Macron to step down. And this has happened with lawyers the other day. I posted it on CanadaReport.co. So this is interesting to watch. France is being, well, the workers are striking. There's no trains, and the doctors and the lawyers. There's very interesting things happening in our world. And yet our media wants to focus on, well, yeah, right? Isn't that interesting? And wouldn't Canada be lucky to have to pay for the security costs of Miss Merkel and Prince Harry? Meghan Merkel, right? That's her name? Yeah, Merkel. But yeah, so this is a global news article talking about Trudeau. Lots of discussions left on who will cover Meghan and Harry's security. Apparently, it's quite an expensive tab. Links in the description. I've desperately been trying to ignore that story, but it's not going away. It's political. Right now, it's political. There's a happy smiling. Look at that. Aren't they happy together? CBC, moving to a little bit, well, less political, but still political. They are hemorrhaging money. Now, part of that is the Olympics. They got the Olympics contract at the last Olympics, and that is a big advertising boon because a lot of people watch the Olympics. And so 2018 was a banner year, if you will, and then 2019 is, well, 37%, so almost 40% of your revenue. That's got to hurt. I mean, it hurts less when you get a huge government subsidy, right? But it's still got to hurt. And this is National Citizens Coalition tweeting, "The CBC has confirmed its TV ad revenues fell a staggering 37% in 2019, with fewer than 1% of Canadians watching its local newscasts. The Crown broadcaster questions whether it can remain sustainable without more subsidies." And that's a Blacklock's reporting. Interesting stuff. Here's the Winnipeg. Here's a Winnipeg constable giving his opinion on handgun bans. And I've talked a lot about handgun bans, but here is a constable who's got a lot of experience, and well, this is what he thinks about this. Here we go.
I can tell you that the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police have indicated that won't make any difference. When we seize handguns, the handguns are always almost 100% in the possession. When When we seize handguns, the handguns are always almost.
Well, sorry about that, everyone. I thought going right to the source would be better, but apparently it's not. Playing it on Facebook will result in them doing what they just did. So here's from where we roughly were. I apologize for the interruption.
When we seize handguns, the handguns are always almost 100% in the possession of people who have no legal right to possess them. They're almost always stolen or illegally obtained. I simply don't see, as a 27-year veteran, how adding another layer of law will make any difference anywhere in this country. When we stop somebody in this city, and police do this every single day, and they have a handgun, somehow saying that this jurisdiction, that Winnipeg is handgun free, and I'll use air quotes, is going to make it safer or easy for us is just nonsense. It won't make any difference whatsoever. There are handguns all over. They're all illegal, and they're in the hands of criminals. And that the people that legitimately own them, they're in safes and being taken to gun clubs. The two sections don't intersect. So if someone owns a gun legitimately and it's stolen and it's brought into Winnipeg, somebody saying, well, it's illegal to have that gun in Winnipeg is just another layer of, and I guess it might make some people feel good, but it will not change the threat level one iota.
You said that.
Nonsense. It will not change the threat level one iota. It doesn't sound like Constable Carver, with his 27 years experience, is convinced, and he's quoting the chiefs of police. I'm not convinced either. I think it's a dumb idea. I think it's absolutely idiotic. I don't think it'll work. I don't think it'll help. Maple Leaf Foods, and I did a really close look at this the other day, and how close Maple Leaf Foods CEO Michael McCain is to our finance minister, is to our government, and choices that he's made, that our government has subsidized his companies. It's really interesting that he's totally behind the government, right? Maple Leaf CEO asks parliamentarians to not sanction Chinese officials. Please don't sanction those Chinese officials. I don't know why. I don't know why he doesn't want the parliamentarians to not sanction the Chinese officials. But after trying to blame Trump for Iran's downing of its own citizens on a Ukrainian plane, I think he's got very little credibility. So I'm just putting it here to point out that the finance minister's, family is using their corporate perch to spread what the government wants out there, presumably. Unless these are his own personal opinions. Who knows? Who knows? It's hard to tell these days. So many connections. Here's another little bit of reality slapping people in the face. I often talk about affordability, right? And this was posted January 13th. It says, quote, "The system isn't working, CBC Kitchener-Waterloo. Kitchener housing report raises red flags on affordability." A new report going before Kitchener Committee Monday says home ownership is becoming unaffordable for all but the city's highest earners. The report said rents increased by an average of 35%, while average housing prices increased by a whopping 88% during the decade between 2008 and 2018. Most of those cost increases happened since 2016, the report said. Only a third of the people in the city of Kitchener can afford to purchase what is now the average resale house in the city, says Karen Cooper, the city's manager of strategic and business planning. The end result is that people who could have previously moved from a rental apartment into a family home are now staying where they are, she said. That in turn leads to higher rental prices, which Cooper said also contribute to rising homelessness. GTA expats part of the problem. Cooper said the uptick in housing prices is caused by a variety of factors. You know what factor is not listed? You know what factor is not mentioned in this article at all? I'll read through these and I'll see if you can guess. You've probably yelled it out at your screen already. Okay, factor 1, people fleeing the Greater Toronto Area in search of relatively greener pastures. 2, more young people choosing to stick around after graduation. They're just sticking around. It's because, they want to hang out with mom and dad, right? That's exactly what they want to be doing. Number 3, new businesses setting up shop and bringing employees. Number 4, people buying real estate as an investment. Oh, which people? Canadian people? Because we just established that they can't move from a rental to a family home because they can't afford it, right? So they stay where they are. So who's buying as an investment property? Immigration, right? And foreign buyers, all inflating our markets. It's unbelievable, right? Just like, these are the 4 factors. Don't mention these 2. Unbelievable. It's like the transparency that Justin Trudeau touts, right? My government is super transparent. Here's a global or National Post article from today that talks just about the last 50 days of his itinerary and how not transparent he is. Justin Trudeau fails yet another transparency test by Justin Ling. Here we go. 4 years ago, the Prime Minister's office announced something revolutionary. Justin Trudeau's daily schedule would be public. The world would know what he was up to. Well, not that revolutionary. The U.S. president's daily itinerary is both a matter of public record and quite detailed. But in Canada, a land of polite secrecy, it was a step in the right direction. Quote, such an advisory with the Prime Minister's schedule will be released daily in the spirit of openness and transparency, one press flack told the Huffington Post in 2016. The idea would be that, quote, at least people know what the Prime Minister is doing, where he is, and have a sense of his activities, another told the Toronto Star. Knowing what the Prime Minister is up to, from the meetings he holds with his own caucus to the phone calls he makes to foreign leaders to the briefings he gets from various officials and advisors, this is useful stuff to know. During the recent escalation of tensions in the Middle East, journalists may have turned an eye to those itineraries to see who Trudeau was conferring with. Chief of Defense Staff General Jonathan Vance, Chief of the Communications Security Establishment Shelley Bruce, Foreign Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne, or Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan. But anyone checking those itineraries would be left totally in the dark. On January 4th, the day after a U.S. drone strike killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, the Prime Minister was on vacation in Costa Rica, so the schedule simply read personal. The day after, he was back in Ottawa, again, personal. By the 6th, a Monday, Trudeau spent all day in private meetings. Same for the day after. That evening, Iran fired a barrage of missiles at American military bases in Iraq, one of which housed Canadian troops. Hours later, Iran shot a Ukrainian International Airlines jet out of the sky, killing 57 Canadian citizens, and scores of others. That Wednesday's itinerary had just one item, a 4 p.m. press conference. On the 9th, another press conference, and notice that the Prime Minister would join a candlelit vigil on Parliament Hill for the victims of the crash. The Prime Minister, of course, was busy on those days. Check the Twitter feed of Adam Scotty, the official photographer for the Prime Minister's office, and you'd learn that on January 9th, Trudeau, a closed-door meeting with Sajjan, Bruce, and Vance, including others that wasn't in his itinerary. Look back through the archive of Trudeau's daily itineraries, and it becomes pretty clear that this isn't an actual schedule of the Prime Minister's daily events, just a pale imitation of one. Over the past 50 days, as of Tuesday, January 14th, the Prime Minister's itinerary details 15 meetings, all of which are with premiers, mayors, and foreign leaders. There are 10 items of parliamentary business. From question period to cabinet meetings, there are 12 media appearances and 11 public events. These schedules never list intelligence briefings, meetings with advisors, or phone calls with foreign leaders. Plenty of days are perfectly opaque. There are 25 days listed only as personal. Many of them include the Prime Minister's Christmas vacation to Costa Rica. Then there are another 7 days where the itinerary reads just private meetings. There are a few days where the Prime Minister's schedule is incredibly detailed, including every meeting, photo op, even the check-ins at his hotel. Those are only when the Prime Minister is abroad, however, and not in Costa Rica, I'll add. Back to the article. Much like the Prime Minister's spinners told us a few years ago, it would be mighty nice to get a sense of the Prime Minister's daily activities when he's in Canada. But to read his schedule now, you would be left with the impression that Trudeau rolls out of bed a little after noon, cleans up, takes a meeting with the Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Dwight Ball, then heads home for some much-needed R&R. Yeah. And that is the impression that he leaves us with. And that is the impression that I was left with all through the missile crisis and right up to now. So, I mean, yeah. Here's some illegal gambling. Global News is reporting, and this is today. RCMP's illegal gaming unit pointed out BC's casino alleged rampant corruption, including the possible infiltration of organized crime from Asia and sex trafficking. 3 months later, the BC government defunded and disbanded the unit. Okay, there's this one, and then the Harper article, and that's it. Okay, so a businessman connected to Asian organized crime was allowed by a British Columbian government employee to buy part of a BC Lottery Corporation casino, according to a confidential RCMP report obtained by Global News. And the government employee was later hired in a BC casino. The explosive accusation was just one example of organized crime's alleged infiltration and corruption of BC government casinos, according to a January 2009 RCMP Anti-Illegal Gaming Unit report, AIGU report. Sorry, this was the acronym I was trying to get in there. I messed it up. I apologize. Back to Back to the article. The report also contained jarring allegations of victimization, including that women with gambling debts in Asia were being trafficked to BC and forced into sex work, and that children in BC had been thrown in the trunk of a car and warned at gunpoint that their father owed $300,000. The report argued that the RCMP Anti-Illegal Gaming Unit, IIGET, should target the drug cartels using BC Lottery Corporation casinos in combination with illegal casinos to launder money. So they're working together? Yes, because they've been infiltrated, right? Back to the article. At the time, the IIGET was funded by BC Lottery Corp and was only permitted to target illegal casinos. But 3 months later, instead of following the report's recommendations, BC government defunded and disbanded the illegal gaming unit. Critics of BC's casino industry have long questioned the decision to kill the RCMP unit. In an interview from former Crown Prosecutor Sandy Garrisano, excuse me if I've got that wrong, said the confidential RCMP report obtained through extensive freedom of information requests by Global News is shocking to the conscience and points to the appearance of corruption in the regulatory system. Quote, I always believed in this report we would finally find this kind of detail, and it is so important that it's finally coming to light, Garrisano said. BC government documents claim the decision was based on funding pressures in the BC Lottery Corp and that IIGET was ineffective. The January 2009 RCMP report stressed that money laundering between legal and illegal casinos was an integrity concern for BC's government. It said that organized crime could make big money in underground casinos and, through the infiltration of legitimate gaming venues, easily launder and transfer the criminal proceedings. And BC governments and criminal casinos had become intertwined in a dirty economic loop, the report said, even sometimes sharing the same card dealers and loan shark networks. Illegal and legal gaming shares the same issues such as loan sharking, extortion, assault, kidnapping, and murder, the report said, and illegal and legal gaming have been interlinked when, in some cases, casino staff have directed patrons to loan sharks or to common gaming houses. These links between government facilities and underground casinos suggest that corruption undermines the integrity of gaming in British Columbia, the report said. But in the case of one BC casino that is not identified in the report obtained by Global News, the organized crime connection was more fundamental and damaging to the integrity of gaming. More specific connections to Asian organized crime was through a subject connected to the Asian organized crime who was allowed to buy into a casino, the report said, pointing to an unidentified investor whose casino business associates have Asian organized crime connections. And there's a lot more to this story. Oh, and I've highlighted more, so we're going to keep going. But I'm not going to finish the whole article. In an interview, Dennis Miner, excuse me if I've got that wrong, former deputy director of Canada's anti-money laundering watchdog FinTrack, said the allegations of criminal connections and ownership in BC lottery casinos are explosive. Quote, for licensing, casinos are expected to conduct due diligence on the owners, the employees, and any associates to ensure criminals and their associates are nowhere near casino ownership or operations, Miner said. In my view, if the criminal casino ownership allegations were reported to anyone in BC government and the RCMP, they were not further investigated, there is a breach because there is a fiduciary or legal responsibility to the public. This is shocking. The report does not identify the BC government employee that it alleges knowingly allowed a person connected to organized crime to buy into a BC casino before taking a job with an unidentified casino company. In an interview, Garrisano said that a revolving door on turbocharge involving former government and police employees that have taken jobs in the BC casino industry has created dangers of corruption. All of these reported allegations are of a mentality of turning a blind eye to criminality, Garrisano said. Anyone connected to organized crime, it is a complete collapse of regulatory oversight that such an individual is allowed anywhere near a provincially licensed gaming site in terms of ownership or any stake. The minister responsible for reviewing the January 2009 RCMP report and the decision to disband IIGET, former BC Solicitor General Richard Coleman, has stated that the unit was ineffective, but Garrisano said she believes the details in the report shred the credibility of the BC government's explanation for shutting down IIGET. It is stunning to me that any government official would be provided this information, and the Solicitor General's response was rather than to grant the police the resources they were seeking, to do the reverse and disband the unit, she said. And as I said, there's a lot more in this article, but I just don't have the The time, because we're almost done. Oh, it's too much. This is just quick. Harper says the regime change needed in Iran to bring peace to the region. They had to change the title of this. This is, I don't know why. He never actually says regime change in that order. But anyway, here we go. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper says peace in the Middle East will only come after regime change in Iran. Speaking at an international conference on global challenges in New Delhi, Thursday, Harper said he did not believe Iran would have shot down a civilian aircraft deliberately, but the fact that Tehran knew it could happen and still allowed normal civilian air traffic, quote, tells you something about the nature of that regime and its priorities. Quote, I do believe we need to see a change in Iran if we're going to see peace in the Middle East, he told the international audience at the Racine Dialogue Conference. Racinia? Sorry if I've got that wrong. I see an increasing number of states in the region, Israel, that I'm close to, certainly, the Sunni Arab monarchies, others who are increasingly trying to work together and see a common future and common interests. And you have this one actor that, quite frankly, is ... based on religious fanaticism and regional imperialism. And as I say, as a friend of the Jewish people, frankly, an anti-Semitic state. That's Stephen Harper. And I scroll down. Harper's conservative government had long taken a hard-line stance on Iran. It suspended diplomatic relations with the country in 2012, expelling diplomats and closing the embassy. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had campaigned on a promise to restore diplomatic relations with Iran in 2015, but the two countries have not re-engaged. The Liberal government did lift a broad ban on financial services, imports, and exports involving Iran. In May 2018, Harper signed his name to a full-page ad in the New York Times supporting U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw from a landmark nuclear deal with Iran. So Harper supports Trump's withdrawal from the nuclear deal and doesn't so much believe Iran and thinks that there needs to be a change. Interesting stuff happening. And I'm sorry this video is so long. I apologize. I know there's some clear different parts, but I just don't have the time to upload 2 videos separately and do all the work related with separating them. I apologize. But thank you for watching. Check out CanadaPoly.com and have a wonderful, wonderful day.